Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, I want to talk to you today about something that is so powerful, so life-changing, and yet it's something many of us overlook. You see, peace is not just a feeling. Peace is a gift from God. It's the atmosphere of heaven. It's the guardian of your soul. And if the enemy can't destroy you, you know what he'll try to do? He'll disturb you. He'll send people to drain you. He'll bring distractions to delay you. He'll stir up noise to drown out your purpose. But I came to tell somebody today, it's time to protect your peace. Peace is not a passive state. It's not sitting quietly in a corner with your fingers crossed, hoping life will treat you gently. No, peace is power. Peace is a position of strength, not weakness. And if you're going to walk in everything God has for you, if you're going to fulfill your purpose, you've got to learn to value peace and protect it like treasure. We live in a world that thrives on noise, constant movement, endless opinions, nonstop comparisons. The moment you open your phone, you're bombarded with updates, arguments, ads. Everyone's rushing, racing, reacting. But here's the truth. You don't have to join the chaos to be effective. In fact, the more peace you carry, the more power you'll walk in. Look at Jesus. One of the most powerful examples we have of peace being power is when he was asleep in the boat during a storm. Now think about that the disciples were panicking, shouting, we're going to drown. But Jesus, he was asleep. That's not just calmness. That's not just faith. That's peace under pressure. That's power that doesn't come from the outside. It's anchored deep within. And what did Jesus do when they woke him up? He stood up and said 3 simple words, peace, be still. And instantly the wind stopped. The waves settled. The storm obeyed his voice. That's power. But notice he spoke peace because he had peace. He didn't have to fight the storm. His peace was the weapon. His peace was stronger than the waves. And you too carry that same peace when you stay connected to God. You might say, but Joel, I've got bills piling up. My kids are acting up. My job's on the line. How can I have peace? Let me tell you, peace doesn't mean you won't face trouble. It means trouble doesn't get to control you. You can have bills and still have peace. You can get a bad report and still walk in peace. Why? Because peace isn't the absence of problems, it's the presence of God. When you truly believe that God is in control, you stop giving anxiety the steering wheel. Let me give you a daily life example. I met a man recently who runs a busy business. He told me, Joel, I used to wake up every day already anxious, checking emails, thinking about meetings, worrying about deadlines. My whole day was on edge before it even began. But then he made a shift. He started waking up 30 minutes earlier. Instead of going straight to his phone, he went straight to the Word. He spent time in quiet prayer. He set the tone with peace. And you know what he said? It changed everything. My staff noticed I wasn't snapping anymore. My clients responded better. I made fewer mistakes. I still had challenges, but I wasn't carrying the stress. I was flowing from peace. You see, peace is productive. Peace brings clarity. When you're anxious, you make rushed decisions. But when you're at peace, you make wise decisions. You see opportunities you would have missed. You speak with authority instead of insecurity. I know a mother who told me, Joel, I used to feel like I was failing as a mom. Always yelling, always overwhelmed. Then I realized I was trying to give my kids peace I didn't even have. She started taking a few quiet moments for herself every morning. She lit a candle, read a verse, and whispered a prayer. That was her time to reset. And slowly she noticed her reactions changing. Her home became more peaceful, not because her kids were perfect, but because she changed the atmosphere by protecting her peace. Listen to me, you are the thermostat, not the thermometer. You don't just reflect what's going on around you, you set the temperature. When everyone else is tense, you can be calm. When chaos comes knocking, you don't have to open the door. You can say, not today, I choose peace. Maybe your coworkers are gossiping, your friends are fighting, your newsfeed is full of fear, but you don't have to absorb it. You can say, this doesn't belong in me. I've got something more valuable to protect. Because peace is not just a feeling. It's not a Sunday morning vibe. Peace is a shield. Peace is an anchor. Peace is power. When you hold on to peace, you're holding on to your strength. And when you let go of it, when you let people pull you into arguments, when you let stress run your day, when you let fear keep you up at night, you're handing away your power. But the good news is you can take it back right here, right now. You can say, God, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't have all the answers, but I trust you. I receive your peace. I rest in your promises. And just like that, the storm may still be raging around you, but you won't be moved. You'll stand tall. You'll smile again. You'll breathe again, because your peace is your power. And once you learn to protect it, there's no limit to what God can do through you. There comes a time in everyone's life when you must learn that not every person who walks into your world is meant to stay, nor should they always share the space of your inner peace. Many of us believe in always giving our love, attention, and energy to everyone who approaches us. But here's what I've learned: your atmosphere, your peace, and your well-being are precious gifts from God that must be guarded. They're not free for all commodities available to every circumstance or person who demands attention. Imagine your life as a sanctuary, a safe haven where you nurture your spirit, cultivate positive thoughts, and bask in the grace that God pours into you. Now think of your interactions with others as different energies, trying to enter that sacred space. Some energies uplift and encourage you to reach higher, while others drain you, leaving you feeling empty and fragile. There was a time not so long ago when a dear friend of mine found herself constantly exhausted by interactions at work. She was known for her kindness and willingness to help. However, every time a coworker approached with complaints or negativity, she absorbed their burdens like a sponge. Over time, her once vibrant spirit began to wither because she hadn't established boundaries. It wasn't that she didn't care, it was that she hadn't recognized that not every problem or drama needed her presence. In that moment, she learned an invaluable lesson: you must protect your peaceful atmosphere by choosing carefully who you allow to enter it. When you start saying, not everyone deserves access to my atmosphere, you begin to understand that it's okay to draw a line in the sand. Think about the times when you were involved in endless drama, caught up in the misfortunes of those around you. Did you leave those moments feeling empowered, or did they leave you depleted? It is in those instances that you see the need to preserve your energy for what truly matters. Not only are you guarding your mental and spiritual space, but you're also setting an example for others. By establishing healthy boundaries, you demonstrate self-respect and the assurance that your inner peace is sacred. I remember a story of a small business owner who always prided himself on being available for every customer complaint, every piece of criticism, every bit of negative feedback. His phone would ring off the hook from those who simply wanted to unload their frustrations. At first, he tried to manage it all, thinking he was serving his customers faithfully. However, soon he found that his health, his creativity, and even his family life were suffering. One day, after a particularly draining week, he began to reflect on the truth he had been avoiding. He realized that while helping others is noble, he was sacrificing his well-being in the process. So he made a decision to delineate his work and his personal life. He established specific times for handling customer issues and learned the art of saying no when he needed to. The result was astounding. His business not only recovered, but flourished, because he was no longer running on empty. He had reclaimed his atmosphere, and in doing so became a better leader, a better provider, and a better example of a life rooted in peace. Throughout our daily lives, we encounter various relationships, some fleeting, some long-lasting, and each brings its own flavor of energy. There are family members who might constantly bring up old wounds, friends who are always embroiled in conflict, and even casual acquaintances who only see you as a dump for their troubles. Realizing that not everyone deserves to share your mental and emotional space is not about being cold-hearted, it's about self-care. It's about understanding that when you are not careful, the negative energies can infiltrate your sanctuary, making it hard to hear the still, small voice of God that calls you to higher purpose. Every morning when you wake up, remember this: you set the tone for your day. Start by dedicating a few moments to quiet reflection, to praying, and to thanking God for your inner strength. With that daily practice, you'll fortify your atmosphere. Soon, you'll be able to discern which voices are life-giving and which ones are meant to be placed on the outskirts. There will be moments when someone you care about might come to you with a heavy heart. And although you want to help, you must decide if your heart has the capacity to hear. You might say, I care deeply, but I need to maintain my own peace so I can be truly helpful. This isn't selfishness, it's wisdom in action. It's the kind of strength that comes from knowing that protecting your atmosphere is a form of self-love, and it is necessary for you to thrive. Envision the peaceful garden you are tending within your soul. Every thought, every emotion is like a delicate bloom. You wouldn't want weeds choking these flowers, would you? So you must be vigilant about what you allow to grow there. You must choose to water your garden with words of encouragement, with moments of solitude, with the inspiring teachings of those who uplift you, and most of all, with the everlasting grace of God. Every person who seeks access to your inner world must be met with a measure of discernment. Not everyone deserves the keys to your sanctuary. Only those whose hearts resonate with kindness, integrity, and a genuine desire for your well-being should be welcomed. So today, as you navigate through the moments of your life, remember this simple but profound truth. Protect your space. Honor your peace. When you do, you not only enrich your own life, but you also become a beacon of hope and light in a world that so desperately needs it. Guard that inner sanctum fiercely, because when your atmosphere is undisturbed, your spirit can soar, your mind can think clearly, and your heart can be a fountain of inspiration to everyone around you. One of the most powerful lessons you can ever learn in life is that you don't have to show up to every fight. Not every battle is yours to fight. Not every comment needs a comeback. Not every insult deserves your energy. Just because someone throws an invitation to conflict your way doesn't mean you have to RSVP. Sometimes the greatest strength is silence. Sometimes the wisest response is no response at all. We live in a world where everyone wants to be heard, where being right seems more important than being at peace. There's this constant pull to defend ourselves, to prove our point, to clap back when someone misunderstands or disrespects us. But what if I told you that you don't have to attend every argument you're invited to? There's a story in the Bible about Jesus standing before Pontius Pilate. He's been wrongfully accused, beaten, humiliated. The crowd is shouting, demanding his execution. Pilate is questioning him, trying to get a reaction. And yet, what does Jesus do? He stays quiet. He doesn't defend himself. He doesn't try to justify anything. He remains calm, composed still. Why? Because he knew who he was. And when you know who you are, you don't have to prove it to anybody. That kind of peace is power. Let me give you a real life example. I once spoke with a young woman who had recently started a new job. She was excited, full of potential, ready to shine. But there was a coworker who made it their mission to push her buttons, constantly criticizing, spreading gossip, and creating drama in every meeting. At first, she would argue back, defend her decisions, try to explain herself, but it only made things worse. The conflict grew, her stress increased, and she began to dread going to work. One day, she came across this simple truth: you don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. And that changed everything. She stopped reacting. She stopped explaining herself to someone who wasn't listening. She started letting her results speak for her instead of her words. Within a few weeks, that coworker lost their power over her. The gossip stopped because it had no fuel. The drama faded because it had no audience. And her peace, it returned stronger than ever. You see, the enemy wants you distracted. He knows if he can get you caught up in little fights, petty debates, emotional whirlwinds, he can keep you from your purpose. He knows that if he can make you reactive, he can rob you of your power. But you've got to rise above it. Just because someone cuts you off in traffic doesn't mean you have to yell. Just because a stranger is rude to you online doesn't mean you have to respond. Just because a family member throws shade at your choices doesn't mean you need to explain your whole life to them. Some arguments are setups designed to pull you out of character, out of peace, out of alignment with who God has called you to be. And listen, not attending every argument doesn't make you weak. It doesn't mean you're scared. It means you're wise. It means you value your peace more than someone else's drama. It means you understand that not everything deserves a reaction. There's a difference between reacting and responding. Reacting is immediate, it's emotional, it's raw, but responding comes from a place of wisdom. Responding is thoughtful. Responding says, I've weighed this and I've decided it's not worth my energy. There's this saying, never wrestle with a pig. You both get dirty, but the pig likes it. And that's how some people operate. They thrive off negativity. They live for drama. But you weren't called to live in the mud. You were called to soar like an eagle. And eagles don't waste time squabbling with chickens. Every time you choose peace over pettiness, you grow. Every time you walk away from an argument you could have won, you win something even greater: your self-control, your clarity, your joy. I know people who used to fight every battle. They had to prove they were right. They had to have the last word. But over time, they realized that winning those arguments cost them too much. It cost them their mental health, their relationships, their sleep. Eventually, they learned the value of letting things go. And now, they're not only more peaceful, but they're more successful, more focused, and more fulfilled. So the next time someone tries to bait you into an argument, pause, take a breath. Ask yourself, is this worth my peace? Is this worth my energy? Will this matter 5 years from now? Most of the time, the answer is no. Let them talk. Let them assume. Let them believe what they want. You're not obligated to defend yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. Your character, your fruit, your consistency, those are your defenders. And when you choose not to attend the argument, when you walk away with your head high and your peace intact, you give God room to fight the battle for you. You take your hands off it and you say, Lord, I trust you to handle what I can't. That's not weakness. That's strength. That's wisdom. That's maturity. And that, my friend, is how you protect your peace. You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. You can walk in power. You can walk in purpose. You can walk in peace. Most people think of peace as something that just happens like a calm breeze that randomly passes through your life when the storms are over. But true peace isn't passive. It's not something you sit back and wait for, hoping your circumstances will line up just right. No, peace is a decision. It's an intentional, daily choice to say, I will not let what's happening around me control what's happening within me. Life is loud. People will disappoint you. Deadlines will press in. Bills will come. Relationships will stretch you. And if you're waiting for everything to settle down before you find peace, you'll be waiting for a very long time. Because the truth is, life rarely slows down for you. But here's the beauty of it. You don't have to wait for peace. You can choose it. Let me tell you about a woman named Lisa. Lisa was a single mother working 2 jobs, juggling bills, homework, and exhaustion. Every day, she felt like she was drowning in pressure. She told me, Joel, I kept telling myself that when I get a better job, I'll feel peace. When the kids are older, I'll be calm. When I finally get a break, I'll breathe again. But one night, everything changed. She was sitting in her car in a grocery store parking lot, feeling overwhelmed when she heard a still, small voice whisper, you can choose peace now. She didn't fully understand it at first, but she decided to try. She turned off the radio, took a few deep breaths, and started thanking God for what she did have: her health, her kids, the strength to keep going. That moment didn't change her situation overnight, but it changed her. She realized peace wasn't something she had to wait for. It was something she had to decide on. And that one decision became a turning point. You see, peace doesn't come just because the noise around you stops. It comes when you quiet the noise within. And that takes effort. That takes discipline. That takes a decision every single day. Because everything in the world will try to steal your peace: offense, comparison, fear, hurry. But when you say, I refuse to let this situation have control over my spirit, that's when you reclaim your power. One of the most powerful things you can say in the middle of chaos is, I choose peace anyway. Did someone cut you off in traffic? I choose peace anyway. Did your boss criticize your hard work? I choose peace anyway. Did your plans fall apart again? I choose peace anyway. That's not weakness. That's not ignoring reality. That's strength. That's spiritual maturity. That's the kind of person who doesn't get tossed around by emotions or circumstance, but stays grounded in the truth that God is still in control. Peace is choosing to trust when you don't understand. Peace is saying, God, this doesn't make sense to me, but I know you're working behind the scenes. Peace is not the absence of trouble, it's the presence of trust. It's a deep-rooted confidence that no matter what happens, you are not alone and you are not without hope. I remember another man, a successful entrepreneur, who had everything the world says brings peace: money, influence, recognition. But internally, he was restless, anxious, always chasing something more. He told me, Joel, I had all the stuff, but none of the peace. And then I realized I was outsourcing my peace to the world. I was letting my income, my calendar, and other people's opinions determine my sense of calm. He made a shift. He started every day with quiet. He began meditating on Scripture instead of emails. He learned to say no to things that drained him, even if they looked good on paper. And one day he said, I finally found peace, not because the world got easier, but because I stopped giving it power over me. That's the key, friend. The world may never hand you peace, but the God who lives in you is the Prince of Peace. And every time you pause and align yourself with him, you tap into a peace that surpasses all understanding. It doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it's just walking away from a conversation that's getting heated. Sometimes it's choosing to forgive when your flesh wants revenge. Sometimes it's going to bed instead of staying up worrying about what you can't change. It's small decisions that build a strong, peaceful life. I want you to understand, peace isn't passive. It's not for the timid. It's for the brave. It's for the person who says, my spirit is too important to be tossed around by every offense, every worry, every bit of bad news. I will guard it. I will protect it. I will choose peace today. So the next time life tries to rattle you, stop and remind yourself, the very self in a moment. But peace is my choice. You might not control the situation, but you can control your response. And in that response is your freedom. Choose peace, not just once, not just when it's easy, but every day. Because peace is not passive, it's a decision that changes everything. We live in a world where everyone wants the last word. Social media has given people a platform to voice every opinion, every reaction, every frustration, and not just once, but repeatedly. In the noise of it all, silence has become rare. But here's a truth that will change your life. Sometimes silence is your superpower. It's not weakness, it's not indifference, it's strength under control. It's confidence that doesn't need constant validation. It's knowing who you are so deeply that you don't feel the need to prove it to anyone else. Have you ever been in a conversation where someone was just trying to pull something out of you? Maybe they said something offensive, something snarky, something clearly designed to spark a reaction, and you wanted to clap back. You rehearsed your comeback in your head, but something inside you said, let it go. That voice, that was wisdom. That was strength speaking louder than your emotions. There's a kind of power that doesn't show up in shouting matches or arguments. It shows up when you walk away without saying a word. It shows up when you don't reply to the text, don't comment on the post, don't feed the fire. Because silence is not emptiness, it's full of clarity, focus, and intention. It speaks loud in a world that can't stop talking. Let me tell you about a young man named Jordan. Jordan had just landed his dream job, and he was passionate, driven, full of ideas. But not everyone in the office celebrated him. There was a colleague who felt threatened by his energy and made it a point to undermine him publicly, questioning his decisions in meetings, whispering criticisms behind his back. At first, Jordan was tempted to defend himself at every turn, to respond to every jab with facts and fire. But one day, he remembered something his grandmother used to say, not everything deserves your voice. So instead of fighting back, Jordan got quiet. He focused on doing his work with excellence. He let his results speak. He greeted the colleague with kindness, even when it wasn't returned. Weeks went by. That colleague's words began to lose weight because Jordan wasn't feeding the drama. Eventually, leadership took notice not of the noise, but of Jordan's character. He was promoted, and he faded out of the spotlight. Jordan learned that silence didn't make him smaller, it elevated him. See, when you learn to be silent in the right moments, you become untouchable by chaos. You become unshakable by petty attacks. You no longer allow someone else's insecurities to dictate your response. That's power. That's peace. That's maturity. There's a scripture in Proverbs that says, even fools are thought wise if they keep silent, and discerning if they hold their tongues. Silence can protect your reputation. It can preserve your energy. It can prevent unnecessary damage in your relationships. When you're quiet in conflict, you're not surrendering, you're stewarding. You're choosing not to escalate what doesn't deserve your elevation. Let's be real. Silence is hard. It goes against our nature. Our pride wants to be heard. Our ego wants to prove the point. But growth comes when you recognize that peace is more valuable than being right. Peace is more rewarding than being loud. And when you start choosing silence over reactions, you start reclaiming your power. I remember a mother who came to me weary from conflict with her teenage daughter. Every day was a war of words. She said, I just don't know how to get through to her anymore. I asked her, what would happen if you stopped trying to be heard and started just being present? She was confused at first, but she tried it. The next time her daughter came home in a storm of teenage frustration, she didn't lecture, didn't correct, didn't scold. She just sat there quietly listening. And you know what? That silence made room for her daughter to speak, to cry, to process. And for the first time in weeks, there was a breakthrough. Sometimes silence speaks louder than the best advice. Sometimes it says, I'm secure enough in who I am that I don't need to prove anything. It says, I trust God to defend me better than I ever could. It says, I choose peace over pressure. I want you to think about the battles in your own life, the people who push your buttons, the situations that tempt you to react. What if instead of fueling those fires, you responded with silence? Not coldness, not passive aggression, but intentional stillness. What if your silence became a shield that guarded your peace, your purpose, your spirit? You see, silence gives you space to think before you speak. It helps you choose your words instead of regretting them. It allows God to work in situations without you trying to control everything with your own voice. And in that quiet space, you'll often find answers you never would have heard in the noise. So the next time you're tempted to jump into an argument, defend yourself online, or prove your worth, pause. Breathe. Let silence do the work. Because sometimes silence is your superpower. Not just a moment of restraint, but a declaration of inner strength. You don't need to match their noise. You don't need to lower your frequency to meet theirs. You were made for higher things. Your peace is too precious. Your purpose is too important. And your silence, that might be the loudest message you'll ever send. One of the hardest truths we'll ever have to accept is that protecting your peace will not always make everyone around you happy. Sometimes it means saying no when you've always said yes. Sometimes it means choosing rest over obligation, boundaries over approval, stillness over performance. And that can disappoint people. It can confuse them. It might even offend them. But hear me loud and clear, you are not responsible for managing everyone's emotions. You are responsible for managing your own soul. It feels good to be liked, doesn't it? We love that moment when someone smiles and says, "Thank you so much, I knew I could count on you." We love being dependable, helpful, available. But there comes a point where trying to please everyone turns into draining your spirit. And the cost of that is too high. People who are always available often become emotionally bankrupt. You give until you look up one day and realize there's nothing left for you. You're tired, irritable, distant from your purpose, disconnected from your joy. Why? Because you were so afraid to disappoint others that you forgot to care for yourself. But here's what I want to tell you. You are not selfish for choosing peace. You are wise. You are courageous. You are choosing long-term health over short-term approval. There's a woman I met at one of my events. Let's call her Melissa. She was the glue of her family. The one who always hosted the holidays, who never said no to a favor, who showed up for every emergency. Everyone relied on her. But inside she was falling apart. She was battling anxiety, losing sleep, and felt resentful because no one ever asked how she was doing. And do you know what she told me? "I don't want to disappoint anyone." That sentence had become the cage she lived in. But one day, Melissa had a moment of clarity. Her therapist told her, "You can either disappoint others to be true to yourself, or keep disappointing yourself to keep others happy. But one of those choices has to be made." So she started saying no. Not out of anger, but out of love for herself, for her well-being, for her peace. And yes, some people were confused. Some were even upset. But over time, those who truly loved her adjusted. They respected her boundaries. And most importantly, Melissa began to heal. Disappointment is not the end of the world. Most of the time, it's not even permanent. People may feel let down in the moment, but they'll recover. You know what's harder to recover from? Burnout, anxiety, exhaustion, a lost sense of purpose. That's what happens when you spend your whole life trying to meet expectations that were never meant to define you. Even Jesus had moments when he disappointed people. The crowds wanted miracles, but he withdrew to pray. The disciples wanted him to fight back, but he stayed silent. Mary and Martha expected him to come heal Lazarus immediately, but he waited. And in every case, he chose obedience to God over the opinions of people. If Jesus didn't try to please everyone, why do we? You don't owe anyone constant access to your life. You don't have to explain your boundaries. No is a complete sentence. You're allowed to choose a quiet evening over a loud event. You are allowed to cancel a plan to protect your mental health. You are allowed to stop texting someone who drains you. Not because you're mean, but because you've decided your peace is worth guarding. There's a phrase one uses often: you teach people how to treat you by what you allow. When you set boundaries, you're not pushing people away, you're showing them how to love you better. And those who truly care for you will rise to the occasion. Those who get angry, who guilt you, punish you with silence or manipulation, those are the ones who are benefiting from your lack of boundaries in the first place. Peace comes at a price. And sometimes that price is the discomfort of letting someone down. But your soul is worth it. Your calling is worth it. Your health, mental, emotional, physical is worth it. Think of your peace like a garden. You can't let everyone walk through it with muddy feet. You've got to put up some fences. Lock the gate when necessary. Let in only those who water your spirit, Yasubat, those who trample your growth. That's not being cold, that's being wise. That's being a steward of what God gave you. And listen, this isn't about cutting people off or walking around with an attitude of superiority. This is about discernment, knowing when to give and when to rest, when to speak and when to stay silent, when to show up and when to step back. That's emotional maturity. That's spiritual depth. So don't be afraid to disappoint a few people in order to protect your peace. Because at the end of the day, you're the one who has to live with your decisions. You're the one who has to wake up with your soul. Make sure you're proud of the person you see in the mirror. Let them be temporarily disappointed if it means you're permanently aligned with peace. Let them misunderstand you if it means you're finally understanding yourself. Let them talk if it means you get to rest. Because protecting your peace sometimes means disappointing others, but it always means being true to yourself. And that is the highest form of freedom. Your mind is prime real estate. It's the place where your dreams are built, where peace is nurtured, where faith is planted and grown. Far too often, we allow the wrong tenets to move in people who bring nothing but stress, negativity, and confusion. People who don't pay rent in love, respect, or kindness. They walk into your thoughts with muddy shoes, track their drama all over your joy, and then leave you picking up the pieces. It's time to evict them. Because you don't have to let toxic people live in your mind, and certainly not for free. I want you to picture your thoughts like a beautiful home. You've got windows of hope, walls built with prayers, rooms filled with laughter and purpose. But then someone shows up with gossip, with criticism, with manipulation. And little by little, that home becomes cluttered, not with furniture, but with frustration. Not with decor, but with doubt. And before you know it, you're walking through your own mind like a guest, uncomfortable in the very space that was meant to be your sanctuary. Let me tell you about a man named Eric. Eric was kind, hardworking, always willing to help others. But he had a colleague who made it their mission to tear him down. Constant sarcasm. Undermining his ideas in meetings, little digs disguised as jokes. At first, Eric shrugged it off. But slowly, that negativity started to creep into his thoughts. He'd lie awake at night replaying conversations. He'd second-guess himself during presentations. He began to lose confidence, not because he wasn't capable, but because he was letting someone toxic live rent-free in his head. Then one day, Eric heard a message that changed everything. You can't control who walks into your mind, but you can control who gets to stay. That hit him. He realized he had been giving free access to someone who didn't deserve that kind of influence. So he made a decision. He didn't confront the person with anger. He didn't try to change them. He simply stopped internalizing their words. He reminded himself of his value, of his mission, of his truth. And slowly, that toxic voice got quieter and quieter. Peace began to move back in. Some of you are losing sleep over people who don't even care how their words affect you. You're carrying emotional weight that wasn't yours to pick up. That toxic friend who always competes with you, always has something negative to say. You don't owe them mental space. That relative who constantly stirs up drama at family gatherings. You're not required to carry their opinions with you into your Monday morning. That ex who did you wrong and now pops into your mind every time you're about to move forward. You don't need to let them camp out in your future. Here's a truth that'll set you free. You get to choose your focus. Toxic people thrive on attention, on access, on reaction. But the moment you decide, I'm not giving you my peace anymore, you starve their influence. You reclaim the atmosphere of your own life. And this doesn't mean you walk around angry or bitter. No, this means you rise above. You protect your energy. You choose wisdom over reaction. You surround yourself with voices that build, not break. With people who bring light, not shadows. Because here's the thing, your peace is sacred. Your joy is holy ground. Not everyone deserves to walk through it. Some of you need to take inventory today. Ask yourself, who am I letting speak into my life that shouldn't have the microphone? Whose opinions am I elevating above God's truth about me? Who is taking up mental space but offering nothing of value in return? It's okay to unfollow. It's okay to create distance. It's okay to stop picking up the phone. Not out of hate, but out of honor for your calling, for your growth, for your future. And no, you don't have to announce it. Just change the locks on your peace. Not everyone needs a key. I remember hearing a quote once. If someone can drain you just by walking in the room, you don't need them in your life. You need to protect your atmosphere. And that's what this is about. It's about building an internal atmosphere of hope, faith, calm, clarity. One that isn't so easily polluted by negativity. You can't avoid toxic people forever. They exist in families, in workplaces, even in churches. But you can decide how much influence they have. You can limit their access. You can build mental boundaries. You can smile, be polite, and still not give them real estate in your heart. That's called maturity. That's called growth. That's called peace. So don't let toxic people rent space in your mind for free. Charge rent in the form of respect, love, and mutual peace. And if they can't afford that, it's time to evict them. Because your mind is not a dumping ground for someone else's dysfunction. It's a sanctuary for God's promises, your purpose, and your peace. And that, my friend, is worth protecting at all costs. There's a strange invitation that shows up in our lives almost every day. It doesn't come with a gold seal or a fancy envelope, but it shows up in a heated text message, a passive-aggressive comment, a sarcastic tone, or an online post dripping with bait. It says, come on in, let's argue, let's fight, let's see who can outshout the other. And if you're not careful, you'll RSVP yes to every single one. Just because someone throws negativity your way doesn't mean you have to catch it. Just because someone starts something doesn't mean you have to finish it. Peace isn't passive, it's powerful. Sometimes the strongest move you can make is walking away in silence. It doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're wise. Imagine you're at a beautiful banquet, a celebration of your life, your growth, your purpose. Everything is set up perfectly. The table is full of joy, laughter, confidence, and calm. But then someone walks in carrying bitterness, anger, and drama, shouting across the room, "You're going to let me ruin this, right?" You wouldn't invite them to sit next to you. So why let them live in your heart, hijack your thoughts, or drain your day? Not every invitation deserves your acceptance. I remember a woman named Carla, a strong, brilliant professional with a soft heart. She worked in an office where tension ran high. One coworker in particular seemed determined to rattle her, always nitpicking, always criticizing. One day, that coworker made a comment in a meeting designed to embarrass Carla. She felt the heat rise in her chest. She was ready to snap back, to unleash the perfect response. But instead, she smiled gently, took a breath, and kept her peace. She told me later, I realized her problem wasn't about me. It was about something in her that had nothing to do with me. So I stopped giving her the power to pull me into her mess. That's it right there. When you step into every argument, you give away your power. But when you choose peace, you stay in control, because not every conflict needs your presence. Not every comment requires your defense. Not every disagreement deserves your energy. Sometimes the enemy doesn't need to destroy you. He just wants to distract you. If he can get you constantly caught up in petty battles, offended by every word, drained by every confrontation, then you'll never have the strength to fight the real battles in your life. The battles that matter, the ones that move your family forward, the ones that birth your dreams. Think about Jesus. He didn't fight every time someone challenged him. The Pharisees were constantly throwing arguments his way. They baited him with tricky questions. They twisted his words, but Jesus didn't take every bait. He didn't argue to prove a point. He lived to fulfill a purpose. He stayed focused on his mission, even when people mocked, misunderstood, or misrepresented him. That's the example we're called to follow. You see, when someone is trying to argue with you, they're looking for reaction. They want attention, control, and energy. And when you don't give it to them, when you rise above instead of getting pulled under, it throws them off. It sends a message. My peace is not up for grabs. My joy is not on the table. I don't wrestle in mud when I've been called to walk on water. Let me give you a simple example. You're driving to work, feeling good, sipping your coffee, maybe even listening to a little worship music, and someone cuts you off in traffic. You feel that impulse to honk, yell, let them know how wrong they were. But then you remember, this is an invitation to a pointless argument. Are you going to let that 3-second moment steal your peace for the rest of the day? Or are you going to breathe, let it go, and keep moving? This applies to social media too. People love to drop comments just to stir the pot. They love to be keyboard warriors, saying things they'd never say to your face. But you don't have to reply to every post. You don't have to defend yourself to people who don't even know your heart. Your worth is not up for public debate. Sometimes the most powerful response is no response at all. You protect your peace when you stop letting offense dictate your reactions, when you stop letting drama become your distraction, when you realize that your energy is too valuable to waste on things that don't build you, bless you, or move you forward. So the next time someone throws shade, throws words, throws an invitation to an argument your way, just smile and say, not today. I'm protecting my peace. Because the more you practice peace, the stronger you become. You build emotional muscles. You rise above petty things. You stop reacting and start responding with purpose. And before long, people will notice. They'll see the calm in your eyes, the strength in your silence, the depth in your spirit. And they'll realize you're not someone who can be pulled into chaos anymore. You've grown past that. You've risen above it. You've learned the art of saying no thanks to every fight that isn't worth your future.